And what makes you think you are any different from him? Her mother shot back. Are you not old? Have all your mates not gotten married? Look, you don't have the time to start selecting and choosing husbands. I expected you to jump up with excitement when you saw Afo. What were you expecting? A young, handsome man? Ochendo burst into laughter. You must think so highly of yourself. Once upon a time, in a charming and peaceful village named Udi, located in the eastern parts of Nigeria, lived a woman named Ochendo, who was known far and wide for her extraordinary beauty. Ochendo's beauty was so captivating that anyone who saw her couldn't help but keep looking at her. Every man in the village dreamed of marrying her the moment she was ripe for marriage. Each day, suitors would come to her house, bringing gifts and hoping to win her heart. Ochendo was like a precious prize that everyone desired. Among all these admirers, Ochendo fell in love with a very handsome trader in the village named Chude. Chude was overjoyed that Ochendo chose him out of all the other men. He felt so proud and would often boast about his good fortune to his friends whenever they gathered at the palm wine joint. He was so enchanted by Ochendo's beauty that he didn't even stop to consider whether she would make a good mother for their future children. Luckily, the gods were kind to them and they had no trouble having children. Ochendo and Chude were blessed with 6 daughters. These girls, except for one, became the talk of the whole town. They were stunningly beautiful, with radiant skin that reminded everyone of their mother. The villagers would often marvel at how much the girls looked like Ochendo and talk about how lucky Chude was to have such a beautiful family. Chude had no sons, but this did not trouble him in the least. Just looking at his daughters brought him immense joy. He loved how the villagers would always compliment him on his beautiful girls. Whenever he brought any of his daughters to his store to help sell goods for the day, he would always make lots of sales because people loved to come and see his beautiful children. However, there was one daughter who did not share the same striking beauty as her sisters. Her name was Ifeoma. She wasn't as shiny and outgoing as her other sisters. The villagers often said that Ifeoma looked just like her grandmother on her father's side, who was known to be very unattractive and antisocial. This comparison led to Ifeoma being treated differently by her siblings and even by her mother, who usually called her Mbeke, a word often used to describe a timid person. Although she was only the third born, she ended up doing more chores than anyone else in the house, as she couldn't say no and was always trying her best to be on everyone's good book. Her mother didn't make it any easier, as she would always find an excuse to make her do all the work, claiming that her sisters needed to practice for one village dance or another. Her sisters were excellent dancers, and during village festivals, they would entertain everyone with their graceful moves. Their beauty added even more charm to their performances, making them a delight to watch. Feeling sad and alone, Ifeoma would carry her basket and hoe and head to the farm. She often wished she could be as beautiful and clever as her sisters and enjoy the fun and admiration they received. It seemed like she didn't exist when everyone was around. The only time people remembered her was when there was a chore to be done or an errand to run. Her sisters were ashamed of her and rarely introduced her as their sibling. They felt embarrassed because she wasn't like them. Once, they even asked her to pretend she was their maid, which hurt Ifeoma deeply. Despite her sadness, she always did what her sisters asked, hoping to make them happy. Ifeoma's father Chude loved her very much, but he was often away at the market and didn't see how she was treated at home. When she finished her chores, she would visit her grandmother, who was the only person that made her feel loved and wanted. Her grandmother was a dressmaker and would teach Ifeoma how to create beautiful dresses. She adored Ifeoma because people said Ifeoma looked like her, and also because Ifeoma was the only grandchild who spent time with her. They enjoyed each other's company and loved being together. The time Ifeoma spent with her grandmother was the happiest part of her day. It was during these moments that she felt loved and valued. Ifeoma's grandmother would always remind her of her worth and shower her with affection, making her feel special despite how others treated her. When Ifeoma's grandmother died, Ifeoma cried more than she had ever done in her entire life. Her grandmother had been the one person who was always by her side, showing her real affection and love. Everyone tried to console her, but it was nearly impossible. Her grief was too deep. She wondered who she would now talk to about her worries, who she would laugh with. Her heart ached terribly, and she felt an immense emptiness. To feel close to her grandmother, Ifeoma embraced sewing with great passion. Sewing made her feel like her grandmother was still with her every single day. As the years passed, Ochendo's daughters grew even more beautiful. Their beauty was so striking that people couldn't help but stare at them whenever they walked by. Everything about them seemed perfect, from their radiant skin to their graceful manners. The entire village couldn't stop talking about how stunning Ochendo's daughters were. Every man in the village dreamed of marrying one of them. Chude's house soon became as busy as the market square, always bursting with activities. Suitors came and went, bringing many gifts, all hoping to win the hearts of one of Ochendo's beautiful daughters. The daughters got married one after the other, each suitor eager to have such a beautiful wife. In the midst of all this, Ifeoma had a different role. She was in charge of entertaining her sister's guests and making the beautiful clothes her sisters wore for their weddings. No man looked at her or considered marrying her. Despite her grandmother's saying, "Okwa rogeya oda," meaning at the appointed time what will be will be, Ifeoma didn't expect that her time would come. She believed she wasn't as beautiful or as clever as her sisters and didn't think she deserved the same attention. Despite this, Ifeoma poured her heart into her sewing, every stitch reminding her of her grandmother's love and care. She found a way to keep her grandmother's memory alive through her work. Ifeoma's talents grew and she became known for making the most beautiful dresses. Her skill was unmatched, even if her beauty was not the same as her sisters'. Young men would pass Ifeoma daily as she went about her chores, either when she was heading for the markets, fetching water from the stream, or gathering firewood in the forest. Yet, none of them paid her any special attention. Accepting her fate, Ifeoma decided to find joy in the small things that mattered to her. Soon, all her sisters got married, leaving her alone at home. This was when life became even harder for Ifeoma. Her mother, filled with disappointment and frustrations, would always hurl insults and harsh words at her. "Just look at you," her mother would say. "Your mates are getting married, but all you do is eat and bring no value to this family. You are useless to me." No matter how hard Ifeoma tried, nothing she did ever pleased her mother. Whenever her mother received gifts from her in-laws, she would sing the praises of her daughters who were married, especially when she was sure Ifeoma could hear her. "These ones are my own children, and they have always made me proud and happy. Unlike this unfortunate old woman that has refused to marry," she would hiss. One day, while Ifeoma was eating, her mother returned from the market. Ifeoma greeted her. but her mother didn't respond. Instead, she began to scold Ifeoma harshly. Your mates are in their husband's house, cooking and enjoying what their husbands provide, but you have decided to make my life miserable. Because of you, Mama Emeka insulted me today, saying that my daughter is at home growing old. If you don't find a man for yourself, Ifeoma, I swear by the gods, I will make this house hellish for you. But Mama, Ifeoma cried, it's not my fault that I'm not married, and besides, I'm not the one who gives husbands. I've said my own. If you know how others got their own husbands, then do what they did. I won't allow you to bring shame to this family. This is my husband's house, Ifeoma. Go to your own. That night, Ifeoma cried until she had no more tears left. She couldn't understand why her mother hated her so much, or where she was supposed to find a husband when no man even looked her way. As she sat there sobbing, she felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. She looked up and saw her father standing there. Ifeoma, he called softly. I understand your pain, and I hear all your mother says to you, but I want you to ignore her words. Don't let them get to you, and don't let her pressure you into making wrong decisions. I love you, and I believe you will smile one day. See, your Prince Charming is somewhere waiting for you. But Papa, when? She cried. What she says is true. All my sisters are married. My friends are getting married, and no man has ever asked for my hand in marriage. I don't even know if they ever see me at all. I'm not getting any younger, she wept. Her father hugged her tightly, assuring her that her own husband would come at the right time. Be patient, my daughter, he said. You are special, and someone will see that. You don't have to be like anybody. You just have to be yourself, and you are so perfect in my eyes. When your husband comes, he will see how precious you are. Ifeoma drew strength from her father's love and support. She tried to ignore her mother's hurtful words, but it was difficult as they seemed to get worse each day. Still, she clung to the hope her father had given her and continued to find solace in her sewing and memories of her grandmother. Despite the pain, Ifeoma held onto the belief that someday her time would come. One day, Ifeoma returned from the farm exhausted and covered in sweat. As she approached the house, her mother greeted her with a wide smile and a warm hug. Ify, my daughter, you look so tired. I made lunch for you. Ifeoma couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her mother, who usually scolded and criticized her, had made lunch and even called her Ify, a pet name. She pinched herself to make sure she wasn't dreaming. Something felt off, and she decided to be cautious, unsure of what her mother was planning. When her mother served the lunch, Ifeoma stared at the food with a mix of fear and suspicion. She wondered if her mother might be trying to poison her. She had heard many stories about mothers in their village who resorted to witchcraft and killed their children. As she stirred the food idly, trying to make sense of her mother's sudden change in behavior, she couldn't shake off her unease. Later that night, her mother called her outside. Ify, my daughter, God has finally answered our prayers, she said with a mysterious smile. Ifeoma stared at her, utterly confused. Mama Emeka thinks she can shame me, telling me that my daughter is not married. But God has put an end to our disgrace. I know you are confused, but you will understand soon, she continued. We are expecting a guest tomorrow. They are coming to ask for your hand in marriage. Finally, you get to marry. A smile slowly spread across Ifeoma's face. She was finally going to get married. That explained her mother's sudden kindness. Her mother couldn't wait to get rid of her, and Ifeoma was more than ready to escape her mother's harsh treatment and find peace in her own home. That night, Ifeoma could hardly contain her excitement. She couldn't wait for morning to come. She spent the night daydreaming about her future husband. She imagined him as tall, slim, dark-skinned, hoping he would just be as she pictured. She visualized his handsome face until she finally drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Ifeoma woke up early, eager to finish her chores before her suitors arrived. To her surprise, her mother was helping her with the housework. Her mother's sudden change in behavior was startling, but Ifeoma hoped it meant good things were coming. Once everything was ready, Ifeoma dressed up and sat down waiting for her suitors. Soon she heard voices outside. Her father was already talking to them and her mother came inside to call her. "Ifeoma, your suitors are here. Please come and greet them." Her heart began to beat fast, but at the same time she was excited to get married. But when she came out, everything changed for her. She had never felt such surge of anger before. As she tightened her fist, her heart racing with speed of light, she didn't even know if what angered her the most was the fact that one for her husband-to-be was a 70-year-old man who had already married 7 wives, or that he was sitting on a wheelchair. Apparently, he wanted a nanny and not a wife. All her hopes were shattered. Was this how low her mother thought of her? She had always known her mother disliked her, but not to this extent. She saw the look on her father's face and knew immediately that this was her mother's idea. Well, she was going to disappoint her. "Mama, I'm not going to marry him. I don't like him and I can't accept him." Her eyes brimmed with tears as she felt all her hopes being dashed. Angrily, she stormed out of the house. It was at times like this that she wished her grandmother was still alive. She would run into her thin arms and cry as much as she wanted. But all she had were just memories of her. She ran to her hut and sat by her grave crying. She wished she could hear her and comfort her pained soul. When Ifeoma returned home at midnight, she found her mother waiting outside their hut, her face stern and angry. "You must marry Nwafo," her mother thundered. "You should count yourself lucky. Nwafo is a rich man and has lots of farmland and cattle. Do you know what he promised to do for our family and how much our life is going to change?" "Mama, I can't marry that old man. He is even crippled," Ifeoma protested. "And what makes you think you are any different from him?" her mother shot back. "Are you not old? Have all your mates not gotten married? Look, you don't have the time to start selecting and choosing husbands. I expected you to jump up with excitement when you saw Nwafo. What were you expecting? A young, handsome man?" Ochendo burst into laughter. "You must think so highly of yourself. It's either you marry this man or you will regret ever calling me your mother," she said, storming inside. Ifeoma sat down outside crying. She was heartbroken and couldn't understand why her mother was treating her this way. There was no way she was going to marry Nwafo. She would rather remain single or die than marry an old man in a wheelchair. She wasn't even that old to even begin with. The days that followed were unbearable for Ifeoma. Her mother lived up to her threats, making every day a nightmare for her. Though her father was on her side, he was rarely home to defend her. Ochendo made it her mission to frustrate Ifeoma at every turn. Life became so difficult that Ifeoma decided to run away. Staying any longer might drive her to the brink of despair, and there was no way she would marry that old man. She gathered her small savings and took the sewing machine her grandmother had given her before she died. With this, she hoped to start a new life and build something for herself rather than waiting for a man to marry her. With a small bag of belongings, Ifeoma traveled by a boat to a faraway town called Ani. The town was small but beautiful, and the people seemed friendly and happy. As she stepped into the shore, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. Ifeoma asked around, looking for a place to stay. She found a kind widow who agreed to rent her a small hut. Ifeoma was overjoyed to finally have a place to call her own. Nelgo, the woman who owned the place where Ifeoma lived, was incredibly kind. She had 3 daughters of her own. 2 were married, and the youngest, Nkechi, still lived with her. Nkechi quickly became friends with Ifeoma. They would sit together, sharing stories about their town. Nkechi was known for her storytelling and was beloved in the village for her sweet nature. Nelgo treated Ifeoma like her own. She never cooked a meal without offering some to Ifeoma, which helped Ifeoma a lot since she didn't have much money on her. Ifeoma used her remaining money to buy materials to begin making dresses and sell them for a bit of income. Nkechi was thrilled to learn that Ifeoma could make dresses. She bought a piece of Ankara fabric and asked Ifeoma to make her a beautiful dress. Nkechi loved Ifeoma and wanted to be her first customer. They sat together, chatting and laughing as Ifeoma worked on the dress. When it was finished, it was so beautiful that Nkechi was overjoyed. Even though Ifeoma refused to take money for it, Nkechi insisted, saying, "I want to be your first customer and you can't begin by rendering free services." Ifeoma felt a deep happiness in her friendship with Nkechi. Nkechi was like the sister she had always wanted. People couldn't stop complimenting Nkechi's dress, and soon, Ifeoma's hut was filled with orders from the villagers. Everyone talked about Ifeoma's amazing dresses, and quickly she became famous in the town. Nkechi, eager to learn, asked Ifeoma to teach her how to make clothes. Ifeoma agreed, and together they worked on various projects. Ifeoma's skills and blessed hands brought her more business than she had ever imagined. She earned money faster than she had expected and was able to rent a shop at the market where she sold fabric and made clothes for people. Ifeoma's life transformed. The girl, who rarely smiled, now laughed almost every day. She no longer worried about not being married. Instead, she found joy in the smiles of her satisfied customers whenever they picked up their clothes. Ifeoma's shop became popular in the market. Villagers admired her talents and the beautiful clothes she made. She and Nkechi worked together harmoniously, and their bond grew stronger each day. Ifeoma felt a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. Her days were filled with laughter and creativity. Ifeoma's creativity spread beyond the village, and her reputation soared. People from nearby towns began to visit her shop. She was proud of the life she had built, and the support from Nelgo and Nkechi made her feel truly at home. Coming to Ani was indeed a blessing for Ifeoma. One early morning, some royal guards visited her home. When Ifeoma saw them, she was scared and wondered why they had come. "Her Royal Majesty wants to see you and it's urgent," they said. Ifeoma began to panic. What does the queen want with her? Has she done something wrong? She had heard how powerful and respected the king of Ani was in all the surrounding kingdoms. She quickly rushed to inform her friend Nkechi, who also became worried. Nkechi offered to go with her to give her more confidence and see if she could help her if there was trouble. When they arrived at the palace, the queen welcomed them with a warm smile, which made them relax. "Ifeoma, I've heard so much about your gifted hands, and I want you to make me 2 beautiful dresses for our forthcoming New Yam festival. Can you do that for me?" "Yes, my queen," Ifeoma stammered. shocked and excited at the same time. She couldn't believe what was happening. The Queen of Ani was asking her to make her dresses. She couldn't contain her joy. After taking the queen's measurements and collecting the materials, they left the palace. Once they were outside, the two friends screamed with excitement. Nkechi had never seen the queen up close before, but now she had not only seen her but also sat and spoken with her. They ran home to share the good news with Nneogu, who was also thrilled. Ifeoma put her heart and soul into making the dresses, ensuring they were perfect for the queen. She took her time, delivering the best work she could with Nkechi's assistance. The dresses took weeks to finish. When they were finally ready, Ifeoma took them to the palace alone, as Nkechi was busy with other customers' clothes. The queen was delighted when she saw the dresses Ifeoma had made for her. She offered Ifeoma a lot of money as payment, but Ifeoma politely declined. "I know I shouldn't reject this money, my queen, but consider it my way of saying thank you for creating such a happy kingdom," Ifeoma said softly. "Ever since I came into this place, it has been amazing, and the people here are so kind. It wouldn't be possible if you and the king had not worked hard to make sure they had an enabling environment." The queen was very pleased with Ifeoma's humility and wisdom. She could easily see how kind and gentle Ifeoma was. Her smile was also beautiful, and the queen couldn't stop smiling back. "Tell me about yourself, young lady. I like you a lot. You seem interesting," the queen said. Ifeoma was excited as she shared that she was from Udi. The queen's eyes lit up with recognition. "My mother was also from Udi, and she was a very nice woman," the queen said. "God bless her memory. She grew up in Ani because business was good here, and that's how she met my father." They chatted and laughed for a while as the queen was eager to learn more about Udi and their culture. She enjoyed Ifeoma's company and invited her to the palace again, asking her to also come alone next time. Ifeoma felt honored and happy, knowing she had made a friend in the queen. As Ifeoma walked back home, she couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. Her life in Ani was turning out to be more wonderful and interesting than she had ever imagined. The support and love from her new friends, the success of her dressmaking, and a new connection with the queen made her feel truly blessed. Ifeoma knew that her future was bright and full of endless possibilities. On the day Ifeoma visited the palace, as she and the queen had agreed, she was welcomed warmly as usual. Ifeoma had grown to love the queen very much. She was friendly and humble. The queen, however, seemed unusually serious. "I have a favor to ask you," the queen said, her eyes filled with hesitation, as if she was scared of what she was about to say. Ifeoma nodded, encouraging her to continue. "I like you a lot, and I don't know how this may sound. It's about my son. He is returning for the festival and I want you to meet him. If you both like each other, I would like him to marry you. People have spoken highly of your kind hearts, and when I met you, I couldn't agree more. You would make a great queen." Ifeoma opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She, a queen? She couldn't believe it. Her mother had done an excellent job of destroying her self-esteem. She thought to herself, "I don't think I'm going to be good enough for the prince." The queen, noticing her uneasiness, held her hands gently. "You don't need to do this if you don't want to, but you would be doing me a great honor if you accepted my proposal." "My queen," Ifeoma finally managed to say, "I would love to do this, but I don't think I'm good enough for the prince. The prince deserves a woman more beautiful and clever than I am." "Nonsense," the queen exclaimed. "And who told you that you are not beautiful? Have you seen yourself smile? Have you noticed the sparkle in your eyes? Beauty is not just about looks. It would be a great honor, I repeat, for any man to have you as his wife, including my son, the prince. The queen then brought out a very costly piece of clothes. I want you to make a beautiful dress for yourself with this. I can't wait for you to meet the prince. Ifeoma left the palace feeling a mix of emotions, but mostly fear. What if the prince saw her and didn't like her? What if he hated her? What if what her mother had said were true? There were so many what ifs running through her mind. She shared her conversation with the queen with her friend Nkechi, who was overjoyed for her. When you get married to the prince, I will visit the palace every day to see my friend, Nkechi boasted happily. But then she noticed that Ifeoma was not happy. Why are you not happy? Nkechi asked. Aren't you supposed to be excited? All the maidens in this kingdom will be thrilled to have this opportunity. She encouraged her friend with excitement. Ifeoma sighed deeply. I don't want to be embarrassed. If it were a farmer, a fisherman, or even a hunter, I would be very happy. But a prince, one who lived abroad, I'm not going to allow myself to be disgraced in this manner. Nkechi laughed. All I know is that we are going straight to the palace, and the prince will have no option but to fall in love with you. Believe me, Ifeoma, you are beautiful and your heart is the most beautiful thing I know. It was good to know that her friend and the queen thought she was beautiful, but neither of them were going to marry her. Ifeoma had been hurt too many times and couldn't bear another disappointment. She tossed the expensive clothes the queen had given her aside and focused on other things. Despite her doubts, the queen's word lingered in her mind. What if she really was beautiful and worthy? The thought gnawed at her as she went about her daily task. But for now, she chose to push those thoughts away and concentrate on the work that gave her joy and purpose. Nkechi noticed Ifeoma's mood and decided to stop talking about the queen's proposal. Weeks passed, and it was just a few days before the festival. The queen sent a message to Ifeoma reminding her about the meeting with her son. I have told him a lot about you and he can't wait to meet you, the note said. That evening, after Nkechi had briefed her mother about the proposal, Mamugo noticed Ifeoma's worry. What are you scared of, Ifeoma? She asked. Ifeoma shared her story with them, explaining how her mother had always treated her poorly because she wasn't as pretty and clever as her siblings. She revealed the pain and the insecurities that had haunted her for years. Listen to me, my daughter, Mamugo said kindly. God was molding you for a great destiny, and everything you've gone through was meant to make you strong. Nkechi here is your age mate, but she isn't married. I don't even pressure her because I know her time will come. Only foolish people measure beauty by physical appearance. True beauty goes beyond that. The only beauty that sustains and builds a home is the inner beauty of a woman. Sometimes the best is saved for the last. You will go to that palace and showcase your beauty boldly with your head held high. You are a strong woman and strong women do not fear rejection. Your long-awaited time has come and you will seize this opportunity. Ifeoma realized that she was just scared of the unknown. Mamugo's words lifted her spirits and she was ready to face her fears. But one thing still bothered her. Her dress wasn't ready and there were only 2 days left before the festival. My clothes aren't ready, she said, worried. I wonder if I can meet up with our customers' demands and still get my dress done. The queen will be so upset with me. Nkechi smiled. I have a surprise for you. She went inside and came out with a very beautiful dress. I stole your material and made you your dress, she said excitedly. I knew you were going to that palace. The dress was stunning and Ifeoma couldn't contain her joy. She hugged Nkechi as tears of happiness flowed from her eyes. Nkechi was more than a friend. She was a sister. Ifeoma looked breathtaking in her dress. It fit perfectly, as she marveled at how quickly Nkechi had learned to sew so well. On the day of the festival, the queen sent the royal carriage to bring Ifeoma to the palace, and Nkechi went along to support her. Ifeoma felt nervous, but Nkechi's encouraging words kept her going. As they arrived at the palace, Ifeoma took a deep breath. The palace grounds were bustling with activity, as preparations for the New Yam festival were in full swing. The sight of the grand palace and the festive decorations made her heart race, but she remembered Mamogo's words and held her head high. The queen was there to meet her, her face lighting up with excitement at the sight of Ifeoma, looking so radiant and beautiful. "You look stunning, my dear," she said warmly, as she welcomed Ifeoma into the palace living room. "My son will be so happy to see you." Just then, the prince appeared at the door. He was handsome, tall, dark, and slim, exactly the way Ifeoma liked them. A beautiful smile spread across his face as they both stared at each other. The queen cleared her throat, bringing Ifeoma back to her senses, and she quickly stood up to bow, remembering her manners. The queen then let them alone to get to know each other. Prince Chidi had heard nothing but praises about Ifeoma since he returned home. His mother couldn't stop singing her praises. "She's so beautiful, she's so kind, she's so good." For a long time, the queen had wanted him to settle down. But after a devastating heartbreak, it had been difficult for him to start another relationship. When he saw Ifeoma, he noticed she was beautiful and shy, with a soft-spoken nature. He began by complimenting her looks, and soon they were talking. Ifeoma couldn't stop laughing. The prince had a good sense of humor and was as easy to be with as his mother. They lost track of time as they enjoyed each other's company. When the event began, they sat together, watching and enjoying the festivities. It was great fun. The king and queen were delighted to see how well they got along. After the festival ended, the prince asked to see Ifeoma again. That was the beginning of their friendship. They enjoyed each other's company, talking and laughing about their differences. It was clear to everyone that they were in love. The prince loved fishing, and sometimes they spent their evening together, fishing by the river and playing. Ifeoma had never felt such joy before. Nkechi watched their blossoming relationship with excitement. She loved listening to Ifeoma's story about her dates with the prince, and it made her heart leap with joy. Prince Chidi was deeply in love with Ifeoma. He adored everything about her and wished he could spend every day with her. Whenever he saw her smile, he forgot about everything else around him. She was so kind and gentle, and her presence brought him immense happiness. Their relationship grew stronger with each passing day. They shared many special moments, from simple walks in the palace gardens to long conversations about their dreams and hopes. Ifeoma's confidence grew, boosted by the love and support of the prince and the queen. Months passed, and the bond between Ifeoma and Prince Chidi grew stronger every day. One day, the prince invited Ifeoma to have lunch on a boat with him. Knowing how much she loved boats, Ifeoma was thrilled. She wore a very pretty dress and styled her hair beautifully, eager to hear the prince's compliments. As they glided through the waters, they enjoyed their meals and chatted happily. The sun sparkled on the waves and laughter filled the air. After they finished eating, the prince suddenly went down on one knee. He looked up at Ifeoma with love in his eyes and said, "Ifeoma, I never thought I would find love again. But since I met you, you've made me a very happy man. I love how you just let me be myself when I'm with you. I get to do everything I've always wanted to do with you. I want us to continue this friendship. But this time, let's do it forever. Will you marry me?" Ifeoma could not believe her ears. Tears of joy rolled down her cheeks as she nodded and said, "Yes, I will marry you." Her heart was overflowing with happiness. She hugged the prince tightly, feeling as if her dreams were finally coming true. The news of their engagement brought immense joy to everyone. The queen and Nkechi were over the moon with happiness. The entire royal household began the marriage preparations immediately. There was excitement and celebration in the air. One of the first tasks was to travel to Udi to meet Ifeoma's parents. Ifeoma felt a mix of emotions, happiness, nervousness, and anticipation. She couldn't wait to share the news with her family and hoped they would be as happy as she was. Ochendo was in the kitchen when she saw the royal carriage and horses pull into the compound. She wondered who it could be and what was happening. When Ifeoma stepped out of the carriage with the prince, Ochendo almost screamed. Ifeoma looked so stunning that she was almost unrecognizable. Tears rolled down Ochendo's face. 3 of Ifeoma's sisters were home and they stepped out to see who had just arrived. No one could believe their eyes. Chude ran all the way from the market when he heard the big news. He had searched all the surrounding villages when Ifeoma ran away, but without any luck. He prayed every single night for her safety and success, while blaming his wife for how she had treated their daughter. When Ifeoma saw her father, she ran into his arms and hugged him tightly. Ochendo cried endlessly, filled with regret and guilt. The family gathered together as the prince introduced himself and explained the purpose of their visit. Ochendo couldn't believe that her own Ifeoma was getting married to the prince. She began to recall and regret all the harshful things he had done and said to her. She knelt down, crying and begging for forgiveness. Ifeoma's sisters joined in, acknowledging that they had not been good siblings to her. Ifeoma cried, remembering all the pains they had caused her. However, she forgave them, realizing that her hardships had led her to this moment of glory. Unknowingly, their actions had pushed her towards her destiny. After making peace, they set a date for the wedding and everyone was excited. Ochendo, though still in shock, was very cold as she couldn't fully grasp the reality of the situation. She regretted her actions deeply and wished she had been a better mother, loving all her children equally. The once rejected stone had become the cornerstone. 3 of her beautiful daughters were home now with their children because their marriages had not worked out. Every night, Ochendo sat up regretting all she had done. The preparations for the wedding were grand. The entire village of Ani and Udu were buzzing with excitement. Everyone wanted to be part of this joyous occasion. Ifeoma's friends and families came together to celebrate and the bond between the 2 villages grew stronger. On the day of the wedding, Ifeoma looked radiant in her beautiful dress, made by her own skilled hands with a little help from Nkechi. The ceremony was magical, filled with love and happiness. The prince looked at Ifeoma with adoration, knowing he had found his perfect match. Ifeoma felt a sense of peace and fulfillment she had never known before. She had found her place in the world, surrounded by love and acceptance. The girl, who had once been overlooked and undervalued, was now a beloved princess with a future filled with hope and endless possibilities. The celebration lasted for days with music, dancing, and festivities. Ifeoma and the prince were showered with blessings and gifts. Their love story inspired everyone, showing that beauty and worth come from within. Ifeoma became the pillar of her family, shouldering their responsibilities. She ensured that her parents and siblings were well taken care of and lived a good life. Mamugo and Nkechi were not forgotten, as they had played a significant role in Ifeoma's life. Ifeoma considered them family, and her friendship with Nkechi continued to blossom even after they both got married. Everyone had learned their lessons, and they lived happily ever after together. Ifeoma's journey had been filled with trials, but it had led her to a life of love, fulfillment, and joy. Her kindness and strength had transformed not only her life, but also the lives of those around her. Hey besties, thank you for watching this amazing story, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. I believe you learned a lot of lessons from this story, and I want you to share your lesson in the comment section. Thank you for all your amazing comments and your support. Like, you guys are really the best. You are the best. Thank you. I can't even thank you enough. And if you are yet to subscribe to my channel and you enjoy my stories, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified whenever we post new stories. Please share our stories to your friends and family so that they can also enjoy and learn beautiful and amazing lessons. Once again, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for all your love, support, and encouragement. Right now, I'll have to go and see you in our next story. Bye!